Welcome back to Reasons and Rumors. I'm Kayla, and here on my channel, I talk about period dramas, history, and historical fiction. And today we are talking about another Jane Austen adaptation, Sense and Sensibility. I can't believe it. As of June 2025, it's been announced that Focus Features is doing another Jane Austen film after the 2005 Pride and Prejudice and the 2020 Emma. And this time it's going to be starring Daisy Edgar-Jones as Elinor Dashwood. But first off, if you're new to the channel, I'm Kayla. I'm a historian, an aspiring author, and I love all things period drama and literature. And I normally do these long form video style essays on YouTube. And I really enjoy doing them. I put a lot of time and research into them. However, they take me a lot of time, and I'm still a relatively new YouTuber, and I'm still learning how to make my setup look professional. And for whatever reason, I am just not doing great at that all of the time. So I've decided, because those videos take such a long time to make, and then it feels like I'm not able to talk about some of like the pressing things that are coming out, like this new Sense and Sensibility, I've decided that I'm going to intersperse my more long form essay style videos with these more gossip commentary style ones, Dramageddon type thing on YouTube. I kind of love some of the like YouTube commentators, and I've always thought, wow, it would be really cool if we could have that in kind of the history period drama space, minus the toxicity. And so be what you want to see in the world. And I've decided that it would be really fun to be able to make these kind of quick videos just hanging out with you guys, where we can talk about brand new period dramas, what's happening in the history world, historical fiction. Please like, subscribe, comment, all the things. Thank you for sticking with Regency Rumors all this time. So, Sense and Sensibility. Jane Austen's first novel, published in 1811. It's one of my favorite Jane Austen's novels, mostly because it mirrors certain parts of her own life that I think she took inspiration from for Sense and Sensibility. It's about two sisters, Elinor and Marianne Dashwood, and their whole lives are turned upside down when their father dies, and they've grown up on this large estate, and all of a sudden their elder half-brother comes in and is able to take over the whole estate, because back then most women could not inherit, and so they were left at the mercy of their brother to give them any sort of income, struggling financially, and then the potential love that they find along the way. And it's also a great story of like sisterly love, and how in a lot of ways marriage was a business proposition. Marianne marries Colonel Brandon, spoiler alert, for a 200-year-old book. She knows that she would have probably a good life and maybe a good marriage with him. And so that's why someone who was as young as she was, I think she was like in her teens, decided to marry a man that was 15 or 20 years older than her. Whereas in the series, in the film, Marianne has fallen in love with Colonel Brandon. And I love Colonel Brandon in both of these versions. He's having a resurgence on TikTok, Alan Rickman is, where people are like, oh my gosh, like move over, Mr. Darcy. It's been Colonel Brandon all along, you know, him being so watchful over Marianne when she's sick. I digress. So it mirrored Jane Austen's life in a lot of ways, because one of her brothers, through kind of adoption, became the heir to an estate. And then because Jane and her sister Cassandra could not earn a living, they were beholden to her brother and male relatives to take care of them financially. I don't think Jane Austen was ever really poor, like below the poverty line. Like I'm pretty sure she was kind of in the lower middle class. She definitely struggled as a spinster with her sister, and they had reduced means compared to what she had grown up with. And so Sense and Sensibility is a really good example of the ways that women struggled in the 18th century. Now, I am partial to the 1995 Sense and Sensibility. It's got Emma Thompson as Elinor Dashwood and Kate Winslet as Marianne Dashwood. It was directed by Ang Lee, and I think Kate Winslet was in her early 20s, or like 18 or 19. It was one of her first roles, was this Sense and Sensibility. So she reflected Marianne's age, I believe, pretty well in this. Emma Thompson was in her late 20s, early 30s, so not so much, but I think that they were a great pairing as siblings in this. And Emma Thompson wrote the screenplay, which got a Golden Globe, I believe, and you can really tell why, because this script has so much heart and warmth and restraint in it. Emma Thompson's Elinor is quietly intelligent. She's emotionally restrained. I find the character very principled. She's stoic. She has the self-control that's expected of a woman in her position in life. I think Emma Thompson does a good job of showing a version of Elinor that knows that she has to tick all these certain boxes in order to survive, and I think Emma Thompson does a really good job at showing that. It's like she really understood where Jane Austen was trying to go with this character. An elder daughter who is trying to help navigate the life of her single mother and sisters and trying to keep it all together. And that is such a universal theme to me. One of the reasons why I think Jane Austen is so loved over time is because she writes these characters that can be applicable in any time period. You know, you could see an elder sister struggling today with the cost of living crisis, but also wanting to find love and security and meaning in life. And so Sense and Sensibility has always been a favorite of mine because it's got such depth to it in these female characters. So late yesterday, a post popped up on Instagram of Daisy Edgar-Jones, and she's holding Sense and Sensibility, and she's got like these eyes on her caption that's like, ooh, like, ooh, excuse me? Wonder what this means for me? Am I just reading a book, or does this mean something for my career? And of course, all the outlets then started posting about the fact that she was going to be Elinor Dashwood in Sense and Sensibility. If you don't know Daisy Edgar-Jones, she starred in Normal People, Twisters, and Where the Crawdad Sings. Now, to be honest, when this first was announced, I was like, oh my gosh, do we have to have another adaptation like the 2008 miniseries? I also really enjoyed it, had a different vibe, but thought it was great as well for a TV adaptation. We have been screaming at the rooftops for other adaptations to be made, either with authors that have not gotten a chance to have their stories on screen, marginalized authors. You know, at this point, I would even take some other well-known authors that have adaptations that are really out of date, like Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, or maybe some of George Eliot's stories. It is Jane Austen's 250th anniversary. I feel like she has grown bigger than ever. Studios are finally recognizing Jane Austen is super marketable. Like, we've known that all along, but I feel like it's taken a minute. Like, it's taken Bridgerton or something for it to really become this huge mainstream thing where there's like Jane Austen products and TJ Maxx and Barnes and Noble, and you know, some of her new adaptations to have modern copies that are coming out every single year, and for Book Talk to be talking about Jane Austen all the time. Netflix knows how profitable that Pride and Prejudice is. So they put Pride and Prejudice on their platform, I think maybe 5-6 years ago, and it keeps popping on and off and on and off. But from what I can tell, and I've talked to other Jane Austen content creators about this, is that they've made of money on Pride and Prejudice. And so clearly they're like, well, if we make our own and we make it like 8 episodes, imagine the cash that we would be raking in. And so when it first was announced that there was going to be a new Pride and Prejudice, I was like, oh my gosh, like, we've had some great Pride and Prejudice. I would love a different persuasion, or I'd love Northanger Abbey. Can somebody give us Northanger Abbey? The reason why something like this would be remade, Pride and Prejudice or a Sense and Sensibility, top reason is because it's very marketable. Who is very marketable right now? Bringing it back to Daisy Edgar-Jones. She, in the last like 5 or 6 years since COVID, has become a huge star, and she is a bit of a Nepo baby. I'm going to let you look that up for yourselves. But one of the big things that I've noticed about this is the fact that she was originally attached to Pride and Prejudice. I'm going to talk about a theory of why I think this has happened the way that it has. So back in like October, it was announced that they were doing the new Pride and Prejudice by Netflix, and Daisy Edgar-Jones was attached to it as Elizabeth Bennet. And at the time, I was like, this is a safe choice. Who they've chosen Emma Corrin is also a safe choice in my mind. To be honest with you, if you want my honest opinion, initially it was tough for me to see Daisy Edgar-Jones as an Elizabeth Bennet because I had seen her as more restraint characters. With normal people, the character of Marianne is one of great restraint and inner turmoil, introspectiveness. Sure, like maybe she could play someone who's a bit more extroverted, because I personally see Elizabeth Bennet as an extroverted character, and I don't connect with Elizabeth Bennet as much. I want to be an Elizabeth Bennet, like don't we all? But I don't always have the confidence of an Elizabeth Bennet. So I've always really connected with characters like Elinor Dashwood and Anne Elliot. When I saw Daisy Edgar-Jones be cast as Elizabeth Bennet, I'm like, well, she's a really good actress, so it's going to be fine. It was one, a bit safe, and two, I was like, I don't know, this feels a bit miscast. So this was pretty much confirmed, and she had like signed on to the project and everything, so it wasn't just like it was rumors, I don't think. What I'm going to theorize is that maybe she had some chemistry reads with like Jack Lowden or some of the other male co-stars who potentially would have been Mr. Darcy, and it just didn't line up, like it just didn't work out. But they felt like, she would be a great fit for something Jane Austen adjacent. She's a well-known actress. She has influence in Hollywood. A lot of times, if you're very passionate about a project, I just watched an interview with Amanda Seyfried. You know who I'm talking about. I'll put up her picture. But that she had auditioned and prepared to be in Wicked for like 10 years because that's how passionate she was about it. So I'm kind of theorizing that Daisy Edgar-Jones is a Janeite, and she really wanted to be in a Jane Austen production. And also, a lot of actors, it is well known that they talk about that being in something Jane Austen related improves your career. When they did the 20th anniversary interview between Keira Knightley and, going out of my mind, Rosamund Pike. Rosamund Pike was talking about that there is something magical about Jane Austen, that it just like kind of brings like light and success to actors who are attached to projects that have to do with her. And I absolutely believe that. I think it is like a career making move to be in something Jane Austen adjacent. It was some of the first projects for Hugh Grant and Colin Firth and Matthew McFadden. And so I could see Daisy Edgar-Jones seeing something like a Pride and Prejudice being a big career move. And if she's really passionate about Jane Austen, it could be that it was known that she auditioned for this, got really far in the process with it, and it just wasn't a right fit, but that she still would be good in like a Regency world. I have a feeling that this project was designed around her because Pride and Prejudice didn't work out. Like, that's kind of my theory. Maybe you are more of an Elinor Dashwood based on your other performances. Let's finance a film around that. I don't know how these things work, but that's just like the feeling I get, okay? Like, it's just my opinion. Maybe she got the bug from auditioning and being involved in the Pride and Prejudice process at the very beginning. Now is wanting to be involved in something similar, and Sense and Sensibility, I think, is a good shout for her. I was hoping that, one, that this wouldn't necessarily have been Sense and Sensibility. I really wanted a Northanger Abbey, and a lot of people have wanted a Northanger Abbey for a while now. I think especially because Northanger Abbey, it kind of fits the cultural vibe at the minute, because book talk is so popular and like romantasy season with a lot of readers. And I feel because Northanger Abbey has these gothic vibes to it, and it has a little bit of like mysticism behind it, that would be such a good film to adapt with a big budget. It's never had a big budget. There was a TV adaptation, I think, in 2007, but it's not great quality. It's starring Felicity Jones, and I love her, and I think she was a good fit for it at the time. And Carey Mulligan was in it. That was one of her career defining roles. But I think it was because it was low budget. People either don't remember it or don't consider it one of the bigger films like the 2005 Pride and Prejudice or the 1995 Sense and Sensibility. So I would love a big budget Northanger Abbey, but since we're not getting that, and we are getting Sense and Sensibility, I thought it would be really interesting to have new people attached to this project. I have had time to think since the announcement that I think Daisy Edgar-Jones is actually going to be a good fit for this. I also think that perhaps Sense and Sensibility is actually pertinent to what's going on in the world today, in the sense of like, cost of living crisis and how there's a lot of people, especially young people who are coming out of college or can't afford college or have to live at home with their parents, that will relate to the instability of life with Elinor and Marianne and having to keep things together when the world feels like it's crumbling around you. Sense and Sensibility being made right now, it will connect with a lot of people. I'm trying not to think about it being like an oversaturated thing. The reason why I think she is a good fit, now that I've had time to think about it, is because of normal people. And it's about two Irish teenagers and their formative years as friends and lovers from the time that they're teens up until they're college age adults. And a lot of it is around mental health struggles and miscommunication, really, how we never know what's going on in someone else's head, and a lot of presumption of how other people are. And so I really love Normal People because I think it's a really real look at how, especially romantic partners, they can misunderstand each other entirely just because of their perception of each other and a lack of communication. Marianne from Normal People is not as respectfully reserved as Elinor, but she is, I find, deeply vulnerable and she's inwardly fragile. And I feel like she silently struggles for much of the series. I think a lot of Marianne's character is communicated through silence, and I think with Elinor that's the same. So I think Daisy Edgar-Jones will do a good job as Elinor. And now that I think of it, Kaya from Where the Crawdad Sings as well, that character is also like Elinor in that she's grown up in a confined world and then she's left to navigate it through resilience and loneliness. I feel like there's a lot of resilience in all of these characters until they explode, and I can already kind of envision Daisy's version of Elinor's outburst to Marianne about Edward's engagement. So I think she's a really good shout for this because these characters that she's played in the past have had to have a level of resilience for survival and then an emotional outburst, because obviously we can't always keep it in all of the time. I think sometimes you need new actresses and new perspectives and, new writing styles for projects for a new generation to embrace it. And sometimes that can go wrong, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But sometimes it can go really right. This being Focus Features, who is making this, and they made the 2005 Pride and Prejudice and the 2020 Emma, of which are hugely popular. I have a good feeling about this Sense and Sensibility, so I'm gonna try and give it a chance. We decided that we wanted to bark at big scary dogs outside at 9 o'clock at night and wake up the neighbors. So we're gonna come and talk about Sense and Sensibility instead. So there's no news on when this would be coming out. They're projecting late 2026 or 2027. My guess is 2027. There is a director attached and a writer as well. I think Georgia Oakley, who is known for Blue Jean, which I've never seen before, but I've heard that there are good reviews for that film. And then I guess the biggest thing is that we don't have a Marianne. I sometimes truncate that word because I'm Southern. Now that we know that Daisy Edgar-Jones is attached to the project, like, I see the vision, I get it, I'm on board now. Who is going to be our Marianne Dashwood? And I've been thinking about it all today, and I've had a few thoughts about who could be a good fit. She's an immature character for a huge amount of Sense and Sensibility, so I think there needs to be someone who can bring that kind of youthful zaniness for someone who has puppy love for the first time. So what I've come up with is 3 different actresses. Let me know if you think anybody else could be a good shout. First up, we've got Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. I could see her being little sister to Daisy Edgar-Jones. Maisie Williams could definitely pass as a teenager. Not that they need to necessarily. Like, I don't think that Elinor and Marianne being teenagers has to be a major plot point in this, but I think it would help have a bit of youthfulness in the Marianne character. Maisie Williams would do a good job at that. I also could see her being a bit bubbly, which Marianne is a bit optimistic compared to Elinor's more reserved, sometimes downtrodden, realistic attitude towards life once they're having to economize in their small cottage. Another actress that I've been thinking about is Natalie Dyer. I feel like, okay, most of the time I don't suggest American actresses for British projects because the accent can annoy me so much, like vice versa. Anytime a British person portrays a Southern character and they do it really badly, it ruins the entire show, film, whatever for me. Natalie Dyer looks like she could be sisters to Daisy Edgar-Jones. I also could 100% see her having Marianne's romantic, optimistic, like swoon-worthy vibes. I feel like compared to Pride and Prejudice, where Mr. Darcy is the main key focus for casting alongside Elizabeth, their chemistry is what matters most in terms of making a new adaptation. In Sense and Sensibility is the relationship between Marianne and Elinor, and making sure that you can see the contrast between these sisters and how they choose to walk through life differently, and the different ways that Marianne chooses to show that very outwardly. And she's like, right, well, if I show my affections to Mr. Willoughby, then that means he'll be more interested and maybe I'll get a proposal sooner type thing. Whereas Elinor is like, no, we need to play by the straight and narrow, and that's how we'll be able to find some sort of comfort and stability in life. Having two actresses who can be very believable as sisters, but who have different dispositions that we as an audience can connect with and feel like we really know the differences between them, I think is going to be the most important part of Sense and Sensibility. I just wanted to take like 2 seconds to moan and say that if we're getting Sense and Sensibility and not Northanger Abbey, and I had my dream casting, and then I could stack my cast around this Elinor, then the person that I would choose to be the next Elinor would be Erin Daugherty. I think she is such a versatile actress. She's been in The Crown, she's been in A Thousand Blows, which if you have not seen A Thousand Blows, then you need to. It's on Disney Plus. It's such a good Victorian show. Me and my husband Jordan have done some podcast episodes about the history of Victorian boxing and like underground crime in Victorian London. Not a lot of people are talking about that show, but she was excellent in it. The other one is Adolescence. Like, I think she's going to get awards for Adolescence, but I could just see her being an amazing Elinor. She to me is the next generation of an Emma Thompson. I think Erin Daugherty is a master at micro expressions. She's one of those actresses who doesn't need to say much for us to speculate what a character might be feeling. There's an observant element to her performances and a dry wit to her roles, which I find in a lot of Emma Thompson's roles as well, just in a different way. I feel like the Erin Daugherty would really suit Elinor's understated sense of humor and her emotional depth. I feel like a bit of a calmer role for her compared to things like Adolescence and A Thousand Blows, but I could really see her pulling off Elinor in another timeline. I just could see her really pulling off Elinor very well, and then I could more easily put a cast around her. And that's no shade to like Daisy Edgar-Jones whatsoever. I think when you first see your version of something, that's what sticks out in your mind from like then on. So unfortunately, like I watched the 2006 Jane Eyre, and I was so attached to that any version after that, I was like, well, they're not like Ruth Wilson. Well, that Mr. Rochester, he's not like Toby Stephens. So I really struggled with that. And I think sometimes whatever version of our favorite shows or films that we watch in our formative years are the ones that really kind of imprint on us. And then we have a vision of what that would be like. And sometimes it's a bit more like the thing that we know. I don't know, like, I don't want to comment on that and like pit the women against each other. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm just saying that if I had my choice, that it would be Erin Daugherty. Well, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think? Do you want a new Sense and Sensibility? Do you like Daisy Edgar-Jones as an Elinor Dashwood? Who do you think Marianne would be? Do you just want to stick to the 1995 version? And You're not wrong about that. No, just kidding. I think because of the people that are attached to this, I'm trying to be optimistic. You know, hearing that it is the people that made the 2020 Emma and the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, I am trying to keep an open mind about it. And it definitely seems like it could have a better future than some other Jane Austen recent adaptations, who shall not be named. Thanks so much for watching. And if you liked this style of video, let me know and I'll start making some more of these like laid back conversational type of videos on period dramas, history, and historical fiction. Thanks for watching. Bye!